Now, the effective data import process, I wanted to start off, and then Steve will be commenting as well. But before I get to that, I just want to check here with our questions just to see if we're missing everything. We will just wanted to let you folks know that we will be providing you the data files that we are showing today, or most of them. There are a couple that I don't think you're going to want, but that I'll be showing. But everything so far, that little payables test set sample and the Excel document that has the data fields, I'm more than happy to include that with the slides. What are non-audit areas where data analytics are used, from that point of view, I guess maybe like an environmental audit, maybe more of an operational safety audit where you're walking around looking for safety. I'm trying to think of some of the things where he had trouble, getting data for. Those would be them. But I think even in them, and what a lot of people are making the point of these days, is that even like an operational safety audit, there probably is a schedule of like every person and every injury that ever happened, from an operations point of view. And, maybe you could tabulate that, start to look at, where are the injuries occurring, and then hopefully, help save people from some harm. That might be something. So I think everything has some data that you could probably get, but general ledger payables, they're a little easier to work with. And why no mention of Benford Law so far? I did want to note there, we kind of did, by summarizing the amounts, which was back here in the testing here, we talked about summarizing the actual amounts. That is a way of kind of getting around Benford's Law. It's looking for amounts that show up a lot. It's not exactly Benford's Law, but it is something that gets closer. It's usually the second question you're answering is, okay, I know that the number 2 digit is showing up a lot. What are the amounts that are, driving that number 2 digit? And more than likely, or more than enough times, that tends to be getting you down that Benford road. So I did want to answer that question as well, just online here. All right, so getting into effective data import processing, which was the #1 reason why people don't use it, and then we'll conclude later today with talking about integrating data analytics into the actual audit plan. Okay. So top 10 reasons why. First one I find is that people don't know what's possible within the tool to normalize data. Nowadays, you can get Adobe files and normalize Adobe files pretty effectively. Hopefully the slides are changing for everyone for some reason. It's just, I can see the audience view, and it doesn't seem to be coming through. Let me just make sure I'm not pausing it. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. So, the top 10 data import mistakes, again, not knowing what's possible within the tool. Could be Adobe. It could be just taking data fields and putting them together, or concatenating them together, splitting them apart, joining various data tables together. All of this stuff, can be done within tools these days, especially tools like ACL and IDEA. Asking for data before understanding your reporting needs, as we talked about, I think it's a really good idea to know what you're actually going to report on before you end up, looking for the actual data. I also think including knowledgeable people in the actual audit process is something that is very useful. And I say go beyond just system professionals too. I mean, I would go to operational people. In a perfect world, you would have an accounts payable. If you're getting payables, you'd have an accounts payable manager or director that has used the system, that knows the data files and the process there, but also would have somebody from IT. I think running some statistics on amount and date fields is also a good one, just to make sure you have the right data. I think, I don't know if there's anyone out there that's had this issue, but in data importing, they may stop doing data analytic audits because they had some audit from 10 years ago where they basically didn't get the right data. They made some audit findings and then found out that the data was wrong. And, boy, did they have a lot of egg on their face at that point. So I think that that's something where, being able to validate your data in some way, be it by running statistics on amount and date fields, taking a look for text code field issues, such as maybe having scientific notation in your data. It could also just be looking at information from a summary point of view and finding out that you don't have all transaction types. These are all things that you should be looking for. Just moving the slide ahead, but waiting for everyone to catch up on the audience view there. Just hopefully that'll come through in a second. There we go. So the lack of hard copy information for review in relation to the imported data, I always like to get an invoice or a journal entry printed out so that I can actually match it to my data. What was the source document that led to that? Let's take a look at it. Not validating the field totals, like we said before. I think using these report files that companies get versus the actual system files can be a bit of a mistake. The only times, though, that I think they're a good idea is if it's really your only option, or management does put a lot of reliance in that report, and therefore you want to you can probably use it, and it probably does tie back to things. You just probably should just do some sort of tie back to the actual data files in some way. I think getting data in Excel can be a problem too. It adds a lot of formatting that doesn't always help. So I'm not as a huge believer in that. And then also not really understanding all the different data types that are applicable. And I mean, there's training out there on this, and I find there's tech support on a lot of the audit software that people said they have they're very good, and they really can give you a lot of information. So again, these were just some of the top 10s that I could think of, and hopefully this helps you in some way. From a quick process to running reports, like what would be your process to running reports? If this isn't repetitive enough for you, first off, knowing your audit objectives, then aligning the reports to the objectives, maybe using past reports such as AuditNet to help refine that model and get you better audit questions. Then setting those data requirements based on those reports, obtaining and validating and normalizing data at that point after you've kind of set the data requirements, which was that Excel document. Then I had a lot in the data import part, as you saw, around actual validation that we can do. And then editing any scripts that you may need to edit for running the reports. And that script might just be a Word document that you're following, or it could be an actual program that you're following, but either one. And then actually just running the reports. So I mean, the running the report part, I did want to note, is way down on the list there. It's not something that happens first. And a lot of times I work with companies who immediately just say, just get us a data file and we'll just kind of run with it, whatever you can get us. I think following more of a methodology, it's just going to get you a much better response at the end of the day. So I wanted to now jump over and have Steve Valance talk to you a bit about his trials and tribulations in getting data files and some thoughts of a data request checklist. And so again, give us a second here. We'll transfer over to Steve.
The next area is to determine what actual files you should obtain. Back in the old days, and by the old days I mean the 1990s, you had to ask your location or your company that you were doing the audit against, and you needed files for flat files that were EPSIDEC or ASCII, and to not have them converted if they were coming out of an AS400 environment and they thought you were computing in a PC environment, and it would destroy the data on the record layout, and then you needed key record layouts. So in today's world, with software able to read a lot more different file extracts and data, you need to understand what the file structure and record layout is. So you need to be able to determine what you need from data. Usually you need a transactional file, and that could be one or more files, and then you need master data records. So you have to work with your business unit and possibly IT to do a preliminary interview with those end users to determine what the fields are that you need in order to accomplish your audit objective and your goal. So if you're looking at vendor or customer files, you're going to want in your master file data customer name, customer number, customer credit limit, location, addresses, key contact information possibly, things along those lines. Also, how they're set up as customers. Are they set up multiple times as customers with different number schemas? In some ERP systems, you need to be able to determine if the customer number and how it's used is set up correctly. Is it a 6-digit customer number, an 8-digit customer number, or a 10-digit customer number? Sometimes all three of those are used, depending on whether it's the primary customer, the customer's division that you're sending it to, or the actual distribution center you're sending a product to. Those are key areas because not all credit limits are assigned to all different customer number fields, as an example. So in a relational database, when you're looking for an actual file to obtain, you might also be able to get all the info you need via various tables that are in the database. These tables might relate to customer or vendor master information, as well as the transactional tables. In the transactional tables, you'll get excessive fields that you need, but you might get all the information you need, such as the PO creation table and the AP payment file table. That will allow you to have all the information, but you need a key index in order to understand the data. And indexes to understand various reason codes. An item might be paid as a payment, but you're getting, because you got the payment file out of the system, you're also getting the actual journal entry information. So you're not only getting the credit to cash, you're getting the debit to the GL expense account and possibly the cost center. So it would double up your amount paid file if you just total the field. So you need to understand the reason codes, which define whether something's a debit or a credit to a journal entry or a transaction, or whether it's an actual payment or still an open amount. Of course, other information that you might need would be non-system information. This will help you do your key analysis against the data you received, such as loan or credit agreement terms. Is somebody a prepay, or are they 210 net 30, or however their terms of the sale or the payment and the vendor relationship is set up. When you do get all the information you need in the files, one of the key things you have to do is normalize the data. In normalizing the data, you want to take the files that you need, that you have, take all the original fields you need, and possibly extract out only the key fields that you're doing in this specific exercise. That'll help you reduce the file size and get you down to only key information that you need. And in that, one of the areas are computed fields. Computed fields allow you to combine different fields, and which can give you a focus into key areas of further review. They can reduce or weed out false positives so that you're only testing the items that are clearly need review and are potential violations. So this is an overview of how you would use them, but where to place them when you actually do have a computed field. You can place them in the original file at the exact beginning of the file. This way, any transactional information where you may need to combine the data, the computed field is already in there, starting from the beginning. In some instances, you may need to create a computed field after you've joined or merged two different files together. If you do the join or the merge in a batch or a script, you may want to create the computed field in a script or a batch. This way, every time you rerun that batch, you also then create the computed field, and it's created in a standard format. The key for this is that you may take files from Division 1 and do a join, and now you're going and doing the same exercise for files from Division 2 and do the same join. But after a while, you may want to join all the files from Divisions 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So if you build the computed field in the batch, it will always be in the same spot in the batch and will be in the same format file. So you won't end up having a computed field that calculates the aging of the customer's AR balance, and then for the Division 1 files, and then have the aging for the customer balance in the Division 2 files in a separate field. You'll have them all in one column or format, and it'll all be standardized. So if it's a repetitive type of data analytics, such as your annual customer AR aging and credit limit check, you might want to consider placing computed fields inside a batch or script so that it's repetitive and it's standardized and it's built the first time and then it works in subsequent years. If you're doing more ad hoc testing, you may need to develop the computed fields at any point in your analysis, because you turn around and you find that you need to understand the relation between two different data elements and whether it meets a certain criteria or not. This can only be done in an ad hoc basis. You can do it live, meaning with the file that you're working against, and let's say in Excel you do a VLOOKUP. But if you do that in a batch as well, you'd also be able to have it standardized and repetitive so that it's always in the same place and it always gets created at the same point in time. Talking about whether something's a repetitive project or a special assignment. In a repetitive project, as I mentioned just before, you might want to create a batch or a script and have comments and notes, and this will tell the auditor what those sections of the script are supposed to perform and what the objective is, as well as the script is an area to create the computed field and to build a report rather than looking at data online once the analysis is performed. If you have a special assignment, such as an investigation into a fraud review, you might want to have more ad hoc queries. And your work papers, while always properly built and supporting your audit evidence, your ad hoc queries may not need the level of detail in a batch or a script because of the nature of the review. It's a one-off and a one-time investigation or analysis, and therefore you may not need to be able to document that you want to do a certain task within the batch for the next year's auditor to be able to understand what was being done. That's due to the nature that it is a special assignment and it's a one-off and it won't occur again and it won't be random. So if it's a repetitive audit and a standard project, there's a lot of time spent up front to develop and build a good script and a good audit program and understanding the analysis you need so that you can clean the data when you get it and normalize it across divisions or locations. And then you can apply the same tests to all divisions, all locations across your organization. In a special assignment, you want to get to an answer based on an investigation or a review or a need to understand something. And therefore, ad hoc queries and doing something outside of batches and scripts may be the way to go. When you look at the outcome of your exercise, there are ways to just look at the information in the audit software you're using, whether it's an audit software package such as ACL or IDEA or one of the other products out on the market, or if it's in Excel. The other way to look at your outcome is to have a report printed out so that it can be put into a binder or showed to management, and it would be cleaner. It would have header and footer information, which would detail what the report is telling the end user. And that information will allow the initial analysis to be able to determine what items are wrong. And when you have your initial analysis, if you do it correctly, you'll be able to investigate 100% of the items that are outside the limits or that are key areas that are potential for being inaccurate. One of the next steps when you do your data analysis and your checklist is to also look at the timeline for the data that you need. A lot of auditors think they can call up the IT department and get the data and work on it a week before they go out to the field. In those cases, what they're doing is they're actually doing the data analysis while they're in the field and not doing the substantive testing based on the results of the data analytics. The best case is to get the data as early as possible. 5 to 8 weeks out from the start of the field work is probably your best bet for getting the data. This will allow you to request additional data if you need it. It'll allow you to normalize the data, understand what the indexes are, how to work with the data, and what the outputs are. And then as you go out to request information from the location, which is usually done 2 weeks prior, you'll actually have your list of items that you want to test so that you hit the ground running at your audit when you get out to the audit location.
Again, Steve, and wanted to bring everyone back here to a survey which should show up pretty quickly to everybody, and the results of the survey. Steve was kind of concluding there with talking about the timing of actually extracting data and how 5 weeks, 8 weeks out is great. I would even say sometimes it's even better to go to 10 or 12 weeks. And when you look though at what did everyone say for today, it is interesting to see that most people are getting data in the 1 to 5 week range. And I mean, I'm constantly getting phone calls from clients saying, we're going out to an audit in the next week or a couple weeks, and we forgot to run data analytics. Can you help us out? And I do my best, although I do find that people tend to go on vacation from IT. There may be other things that are preventing people, like a systems implementation that's happening that week, and now everyone in IT can't focus on this aspect of things. So I find that getting ahead of that as much as possible is the better move if you ever want to get data for your particular audit. Another option, and what many companies are doing, is to start creating a bit of a data mart where on their own they're able to get data whenever they want. And I've done some presentations where people have said, we have access to all data of the company, we can download it whenever we'd like, and it goes into a audit data mart that we have. And I'm really impressed by that. I mean, I don't think that that's the norm across companies as far as the people that I've met. But when we look at why go out 12 weeks, and maybe the obvious reason you can see, or it's obvious that it's a great idea, but some people will say it's a bad idea because you're starting to kind of give them too much of a head start from an audit capacity. So we may find some things in week 5 after getting the data before we go in the field that we don't want them to know. We'd rather kind of keep that to ourselves. So what I find there is it's almost better, I find. I mean, that argument can always be made, but I think there's a way of sending over a sample to a client that has maybe a few of the journal entries or a few of the accounts payable transactions for them to look at, that they could validate. It might send them down a road of cleanup before you show up. I mean, I can't say that it won't, but you can then have in reserve a whole list of other sample items that you could provide once you get there. And when you start seeing things like, for example, if they had a lot of money that they did not refund and they were holding on to it, and then you start seeing all these checks happening in the 5 weeks prior to the audit, after you sent them the sample, and it had a couple of those types of checks that are being held listed, it's a pretty good sign that the audit led to that behavior, and you can track that as well. So, but with all that said, it may not be possible in a lot of your audits. You may find out about 5 weeks before you do the audit, so it may not be possible for you to actually do a full 12 weeks. But as you look at the data, 1 to 5 makes up most, 5 to 8 a little bit less, 9 to 12 almost nobody, over 12 weeks almost nobody. So granted, most people are in that 1 to 5 week range. And I think one thing to note, and happy to provide this to everyone and make this part of the presentation today, but I did want to give out to everyone an actual audit program, oh, excuse me, a data request. And I'm just trying to bring this up so everyone can see it. Bear with me 1 minute here. I thought I had it opened and I did not. Okay. So we're to start up Word here. So going into this data request, this is for the accounts payable file. It's pretty standard that I utilize a lot. And it goes through a variety of examples. So we have the invoice header at the top. I always like to provide a date range that I'm actually getting data for in that date range. Then going into the header information itself, the actual data fields, and again, this is all based on reports that I think I'm going to be running. I've put a few notes and questions in there, that we get everything, and if we can get things in separate tables, that's okay. We can extract data fields from entire files if they want to download the entire invoice file and have us, mess with it afterwards. That's totally fine as well. So, these are all things that can be done. Now, distribution-wise, same kind of idea. This is more for the distribution of that invoice value, vendor master file. And this is just giving you an idea of the different types of data fields that you might want to get and a way of organizing that. Now, other things to put in a data request letter to kind of help things out is how you would prefer your data to be delivered. Do you want flat files, access databases, Excel spreadsheets, delimited files, or finally these report files, the final one? I kind of list them in most preferred to least preferred, and I like flat files because they go into ACL and IDEA really clean. Access databases are pretty good. Excel spreadsheets a little less good. I would even argue I probably should have put delimited files, above and in front of the Access one, because I find a text-based delimited file that has commas or tabs is a lot better. Then I asked from management if they could provide me the data structure as well, and so that I know, where things start and end and the data field types and all that. That generally is more for a fixed file. And then from a data verification point of view, I like to ask for things like a sample invoice hard copy, a total, a record count. This is all going back to the batch total concept and types of validation that you can do. I tell people how to get the data to me. And then last but not least, I start asking a lot of questions that are going to be my next question once I get the data. How are voided checks accounted for? What do adjustments look like? What are the different types of transactions? How are partial payments covered? You may not have all these questions if you're doing your first audit of payables, but again, use mine as, if anything, as an example for now. And as you think about the audit area and think about the data fields that you're going to get, think about some of the questions that you might want to ask and put that in the data request. So granted, timing is a really good idea. I mean, to get out in front of the timing of a data request by doing it 12 weeks early will give you a lot of time to deal with any sort of vacation plans or ERP implementations. And then having that clear data request, which you can have mine as a sample, is again kind of a great next thing. And if you can get all of that up front in the process, be it 5 weeks or 12 weeks early, you're going to just have a much better extract, and people will know how to answer all of the questions that you have.